Hey, here's a story that this is not like a big news story, but people flagged it for me. And it's just kind of, anytime there's a win in the battle of the churning of ideas, that's the new hot phrase, to churn ideas like butter. I do like to mention it. Eric Weinstein is a member of the intellectual dark web. Nice guy. I've spoken to him a few times. He was interviewed by a guy named David Fuller, who has a YouTube channel called Rebel Wisdom. I've been interviewed by David Fuller previously. They had a conversation a couple days ago, and David Fuller asked Eric Weinstein an interesting question. Are there any critiques that you think have been valuable or useful? Now, I can't actually tell whether the question is, are there critiques of the intellectual dark web that have been useful? Or are there critiques of the left by people on the left that have been useful? I'm not actually sure which the question is asking. But what was interesting was that Eric Weinstein said a lot of people are doing schoolyard type stuff, but when David Pakman is at his best, which clearly is not all the time, that's okay. When I'm at my best, I've done some good critiques. And again, I don't know if it's of the IDW or of the left from the left. Let's take a look.
Are there any critiques that you think have been valuable or been useful?
Very few. There have been a few, but very few.
Do you want to name any of them?
Well, it's really been pretty slim pickings. David Pakman, at his best, I think has been a pretty astute and fair observer on the harder, I don't even want to call it harder left. I mean, he's sort of weirdly between the woke and the IDW. Then there are people who are very smart. Like, for example, I think of Sam Cedar as being very informed on policy terms. Like, he's actually following a particular bill or, probably knows the names of staffers on the Hill, that kind of granular detail. The problem with him is that he's got a strong trolling game and kind of a comedic ridicule game that is a turnoff to, it's okay as a wit, but it's not okay as a main course. And so I think that you could pick through the Sam Cedar stuff and find reasonable stuff, but I wouldn't recommend it because of the reliance on ridicule.
So there is Eric Weinstein saying, I think if I understand it correctly, that when I'm at my best, which is not all the time, of course, I've done some okay critiques either of the intellectual dark web, or maybe he means critiques of the left from the left. I believe that this is a compliment. Now, if you've not been following the intellectual dark web or wokeness, he says I'm between the IDW and the woke left. These are two different movements that have surfaced, at least starting online. The intellectual dark web is a sort of group of commentators who could be on the left or on the right, but their big thing is they're opposed to identity politics, they're opposed to political correctness and sacred cows, language policing, restrictions on speech, taboos, etc. It includes people like Eric Weinstein himself, as well as his brother Brett. It includes Sam Harris and Michael Shermer. And then I don't know who else is within it or outside of it. I'm not really sure. The woke movement or wokeness refers generally to the left-wing movement that includes a particular type of cultural awareness around race and feminism and LGBT activism and socially liberal causes. Racial justice is a big thing. And it's sometimes used as a pejorative and sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's have you become woke as a positive thing. I think in this context, Eric is using wokeness as a pejorative and IDW as good, and maybe is placing me between the two. So as soon as this happened, there were people online furious that if Eric Weinstein is saying something good about David Pakman must be really bad. Other people saw this and said, hey, that's actually pretty interesting. What I'm hearing, I'm leaving it at this. It sounds to me like Eric is just saying, I'm at least honest and genuine in my critiques. I know that Eric has not agreed with every one of my critiques of the IDW. We've spoken about it before, and that's fine. But for me, this is less about, where do I agree or disagree with the woke left or with the IDW? For me, it's more about my commitment to you as a viewer or listener has always been, I'm not going to just say stuff for clicks when it's not really what I believe. If what I really believe generates interest and builds an audience, that's great. If it doesn't, and you all know there have been cases where I've just given you my opinion and lost subscribers, well, then that's too bad. But my priority is I'll tell you things as I see them. And hopefully, me being genuine and honest is what Eric is pointing to here. I've spoken to Eric about having him on the program. Still an open invitation to do it anytime he's ready.